Well, welcome back, folks. Yesterday was, of course, the monthly meeting of GRF, and not a real long meeting. It was just the right length. I think about 2 hours and 35 minutes. We have Linda Vorak here. She is, of course, the president of GRF. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good meeting yesterday.
Yes.
Things got done, moved along, which is always nice.
Yes.
Very good. And there's a lot of different things that were discussed yesterday. Some quite a bit at length, and I'm going to hit on a couple of these that we've just been briefly chatting about. One thing that is very important to people here, the gardeners in the garden center, and you always hear about how there's this huge long wait list that goes on with the garden center, and there are very limited plots out there, but you have so many gardeners here. I'm a gardener myself, maybe not a real successful one, but I know if I lived here, man, I would be on that wait list. And you kind of discuss some changing policies
Yes.
and that, how to maybe get the people that have been on the wait list for years a way to possibly finally get their plot.
Yes. You know, it's interesting to note that we have about 300 people on the waiting list.
Wow.
We have approximately, with all our garden plots, only 400 gardeners that have plots. And much of that is because when they set up the policy, and I believe it was 2006, to limit the number of square feet that any particular manor can have in a garden plot, which was 400 square feet, they grandfathered in any gardeners that had more than that at that time, and that grandfathering in didn't sunset. So we started to look at what it would mean if we eliminated the grandfathered in plots and released them to the waiting list, and we found that there are approximately 150 plots that would be released to that 300 person waiting list, which was significant. So what we did is we set the policy that as of January 1st, 2014, there will no longer be any grandfathering in, and the people that have been grandfathered in will have this year to kind of get themselves set to release some of their garden plots.
So some people have multiple plots,
oh, yes.
and you want to make it fair to everyone, so they get to keep just one of them.
One, or up to 400 square feet.
Okay.
So, which is a reasonable size for a vegetable plot.
Yeah, a very good size. I wish I had that.
About the size of a 2-car garage.
Yeah. I have a lot less that in my home, and that would be nice, because when you really think about that in square footage, you're talking about 40 by 10.
Right.
And that's a large area. You can do an awful lot. Now, are the plots different sizes? I've always understood that they're pretty uniform, but they aren't.
They are not.
Okay.
Some are actually very irregular, and there are a few plots that are over the 400 square feet, up to as much as 600 square feet. And those plots, because they can't be subdivided, would remain. But anything that we build for new garden plots now, the standard is going to be a 400 square foot plot. So if we do, and we intend to do a garden center 3 on the 23 acres once the specific plan is approved, then all of those will be 400 square feet and pretty uniform. But right now they range anywhere from under 200 square feet per plot to over 600. So it's quite a disparity. But a number of people have 4, where they've attached 4 and built fencing and canopies over them. It's quite elaborate.
Yeah. And again, I know even where I am, I had to build out in the middle of my lawn. I built a 4x8 thing. I had to convince my wife, and I got a couple other plots. But I actually have in my backyard less than that, because one area is for the dogs to run and my little girl to be out there and all that. But so even a 200 square foot lot is quite a luxury. If you're not really growing any fruit trees, if you're sticking to a vegetable garden, and if you do some of what's called vertical gardening, you can put a lot
You can
on
do
there.
a lot.
Yeah, you really can. Okay, so was that passed?
Yes, it
It was, okay.
And it's in a 30-day waiting period. So
Okay.
it will actually be passed next month. But
Okay.
there wasn't much negativity about it. Everybody pretty much feels it's a necessary thing at this point.
Yeah, I imagine there might be a few gardeners that might have a little
Anxiety?
Yeah, anxiety. But you know, when you really look at it, if they look at it fairly, you know, they might find a way to say, okay, well, we'll consolidate our stuff. Do you find with them, by the way, you know, we hear about a lot of people here who inherited the manors from their parents and end up moving in here. Do they inherit the garden plot as well?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. So yeah, that sounds like a fair way to go. It really does. And then you talked about a little bit, really about the signage in front of the Village Green area, really for the new 19 restaurant, which
Yes.
I keep hearing rave reviews about. I have their menu with me down here, extensive menu. You've been there, you've raved about it.
Yes.
But they need a little signage, so
Yes.
we've talked about that.
Yes, and you know, GRF is committed to doing whatever it takes to help them be successful. And we told them that when we interviewed them, and we're going to continue that. And they would like a sign, and I can understand
Sure.
why, out in front of the Village Greens. The question came up, would it be on the street and allow outsiders in? Absolutely not. But on the front of the Village Greens, probably on the stucco wall that as you enter the building would be where the sign would go. In fact, I had a call last night from a resident who had their first dinner there, and they said it was absolutely wonderful, starting with the rolls and then calamari and then, you know, just on and on. They said, and the menu was just wonderful.
Yeah, well, their breakfast menu alone is quite
Yeah.
extensive.
Yes.
So head on over there and give it a try. All right, one of the things that became, actually two items, but on the same page, so to speak, a lot of discussion on this is the appropriation of monies to go to both Gate 7 and Gate 1, both of which, well, Gate 7 for renovating it, but Gate 1, a possible, well, the discussion was actually moving it back by, I think it was 45, 50 feet or something like that.
45 feet.
And really that's for, as we've all seen if you drive past there are certain times of the day you get a backup there. And when those were built years ago, of course, El Toro was a street less traveled, and you didn't have to worry about that, the traffic as much. But as we've seen, especially as you're heading towards the mall, you're going east,
Yes.
and that backup that comes around and the cars are backed up on El Toro, it can create quite a problem and really quite a danger at times. So this was discussed.
Yes, yes, and there were several aspects that we had to look at. Not just the traffic, that was obviously a priority, is that backup. And we had a traffic specialist consultant look at that and determine that the 45 feet would help a lot. What will also help is when we do a new access system, the resident lane will move much more quickly, and so some of that backup will be alleviated by the resident lane just moving through.
Right.
And then we also had to look at the building itself is not ADA, and we've had some issues with that. It's extremely cramped. So we are building a building that we feel we can use in all the locations. We'll use it at Gate 7 as well, the same floor plan, the same kind of structure. It's the minimum that we can do and still have it ADA approved. And this started, Gate 1 started in 2008, and my understanding, because it was before me, is it started as a beautification project, but it is far from that now. It is really for traffic, security, access, and handicapped. And I think once it's done, the community will be very pleased with the result. And we'll be starting on plans for Gate 5 because It's right across the street.
The road.
So, in the next year, we'll be putting into play a plan for how to do each of the gates over the next few years.
Okay, but gate 1 is pretty much on the books, so to speak.
Yes, we already have the plans approved at the city. We have the bids. So we plan to start that as soon as the rainy season is over, probably April or May, and get that really moving along.
Okay, I'll try to keep the rain at bay for you.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, since I still do the weather, so I'll do my best. And gate, who knows?
Maybe you never know.
You never know. When it comes to gate, quickly on gate 7, this isn't about moving it back. There's plenty of room there. I think you said it's just kind of falling apart.
It's falling apart.
Yeah.
We had a planter that was attached to the building, and apparently over the 45 years it's leaked, and when we pulled the planter out to remove it and repair the damage, we found that the whole structure was dry rotted and termite infested, and to redo it, didn't make, or to fix it, didn't make sense. It was more cost effective to replace it, and since we're doing, we already have a plan for a building, and we felt that that plan would work at all or most of the gates, we would do it right now instead of doing a patchwork. Right,
exactly. And then you had a few other issues. As I was saying before, both when it gets to CAC and Maintenance and Construction Committee, they always have a lot going on. Slope repair, that's one of the things you talked about. And there's been a lot of problems over the years with the slope repairs, and I certainly remember, I don't know how many years ago it was, the one over by Home Depot over there, which was really on their property, but it certainly affected this community. So that's something that you talked a little bit to develop construction plans for slope repairs below the driving range.
Yes, yes. We have, many of our slopes don't conform to code now as far as the steepness of the slopes, and so we have problems with erosion and slope failures, and this was the case in both of the locations that we dealt with yesterday. And we take them one at a time as they happen. We have so many slopes, we can't just go in and fix them all.
Yeah, that's true, but you can't do everything at once. Well, if you didn't catch the meeting yesterday, we do replay it a couple times. The first time will be tomorrow, Thursday, on February 7th at 1:30 p.m. The next Wednesday at 6 p.m. on February 13th. And you can see there it ran about 2 hours and 35 minutes. A good meeting. You got out in time to have your lunch, right?
Have our lunch and go into closed session.
Yes, and then spend another few hours there. So the work isn't done for them when the cameras go off, right?
Absolutely not.
All right. Well, Lynn, it was great having you on today, and thanks a lot for the update. A lot of important things going on. You always encourage people going to the meetings and really encourage them to the committees.
Absolutely. That's really where all of this gets discussed.
Yeah. By the time it gets to the monthly meeting, pretty much it's been discussed. There are certain things that may change, but to really get your opinions heard, the committee meetings are the place to go, right?
Exactly.
All right. All right. So check out the meetings. Again, tomorrow at 1:30, and then another replay next week, 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Lynn, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Folks, we'll be right back.